Hey there, this is Dr. Peter Kloponis again from Integrity Counseling Services in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And it's great to be back with you again for another video. And in today's video, I want to talk about atheists. Atheists. Today, what I've found particularly among young people is it's very popular to claim you're an atheist. Very popular. Oh, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist, and somehow people think that, that makes them look smart and sophisticated. Um, but one of the things that I have found over the years, after working with thousands of people, is that I believe that most of the people who claim to be atheists really aren't. They're not atheists. What often happens is they have, many questions about God. Maybe they feel angry with God. Maybe they feel they've been hurt by God. Maybe they're very confused by God. Because when I ask them, well, what makes you feel that, there is no God and you're an atheist? And I'm often confronted with the response that is actually a question. Well, if there is a God, why would a loving God allow such bad things to happen on this planet? Why would a loving God allow people to suffer? Why did God take away my father? Why did my mother have to die from cancer? Why did my dog get run over by a car? Right? There are a lot of questions that they have that they just don't have the immediate answers to. And these are very important why questions about God and life and the universe and everything. But instead of really, investigating this and trying to get answers, it's just so much easier to say, well, there is no God. There is no God. Right? But what's happening here, kind of the fallacy here is that, in order for them to have a God or there to be a God, that God has to, follow their rules and whatever their expectations and qualifications are for a God, that's what God has to be. And if that's not the case, well, there's no God. So, and I get it, a lot of that is coming from a place of deep woundedness, So whenever I'm with someone who claims to be an atheist and I ask them why and they give me that question, my response is usually something like, that's a very important question that you have. A very important question. And I believe that you deserve a proper answer for that. And so anytime we have questions like this, what's the best thing to do? Ask an expert on this. Ask an expert. Now, I'm not an expert. I tell people I'm no theologian. But when a person has some of these deep questions, these questions about life, we call these, ontological questions, questions about life and our very existence and our being and our purpose, all of that. Often the best person to ask would be clergy, a priest, a deacon, a minister, or even a rabbi, because they deal with these questions every day. And they have studied them and researched them. In fact, I know for many priests, when a man goes to seminary, some of the first things they study are philosophy and science. Why? Well, because if you're going to talk about God, you need to prove he exists. And that's why they study that. That's why they study philosophy and science and so many other disciplines to show that, yes, there is a God. Things such as intelligent design, how the universe is all laid out, how it's unfolding, all of that all point to the existence of a God. And so when people have these deep questions, instead of simply dismissing God and saying that he doesn't exist, I recommend talking to someone who is an expert in the field and can help them work through that. Right? Now, not all questions will be answered. Some things are mysteries. There are some questions that we will not get the answers to until we're in heaven. But that's okay. Because as people work on this, they work on their relationship with God. They work on understanding his will. A while back I did a video on God's active will and his passive will. As people come to understand that, then even though there are some remaining questions that are not answered, the need to get those answers is not as urgent. And people can get to the point where they can trust God enough to say, okay, I know I've got questions, that I'm just going to have to wait till I'm in heaven to get the answers to, but that's okay, because now I know there is a God, and this God loves me and is taking care of me. And yes, I know bad things happen, and that's a terrible thing. But I still know that at the end of the day, God is in control and He's taking care of everything. All right, that's faith. That's faith. So again, when people claim to be atheists, I don't believe they're atheists. I believe it's a crisis of faith because they have many deep questions. They feel hurt. They feel angry. They feel confused. And they deserve some answers. And so guiding them toward the people that can help answer some of those questions, not all of them, but a good many of them, I think can be a good help to them and can lead to much more peace in their lives. Much more peace. Because even though it's easier to say there is no God and we're atheists, that's not going to bring peace to anybody's life. Really, if anything, I think that will create more anxiety. Knowing there's a loving God who's the creator of all, who takes care of everything, boy, that can bring some peace. So for more information and to learn more about what we do here at Integrity Counseling Services, you can go to our website, integrityservicespa.com. And until next time, God bless.